Hello everybody, welcome to the Coaching Conversation. I'm Graham Wiley and I've been coaching business leaders for the last 2 decades. In this series we're going to explore some of the things I've seen and learned in that 2 decades and hopefully help you see how you can become more focused, more effective and hopefully happier in your life. So it's now time to sit back, relax and enjoy the Coaching Conversation. Hello everybody and welcome to this edition of the Coaching Conversation and welcome to 2022. Hope you've had a fantastic Christmas and that you're ready for the new year. For this edition I'm joined by Jed Hassid, an executive coach, and he's going to help us work out what we believe our clients are going to be most concerned about as the celebrations pass and we move into the deepest, darkest part of winter. So Jed, perhaps you'd like to introduce yourself and let our audience know more about you.
Thank you, Graham, and Happy New Year to you and to our viewers, or your viewers and listeners. My name is Jed Hassid. I'm an executive coach. I work with senior leadership teams and business owners to help them establish where they want to take their business, the vision, that, if you will, that they have, and then also, how do we get that vision and how do we execute? So that's what I do, typically working with service-related businesses, people-related businesses, if you will, rather than necessarily manufacturers, but from undertakers through to theme park operators and those in between.
There must be a lot of people in between an undertaker and
I think there might be.
Before we knuckle down to the work, how was Christmas?
It was excellent. Thank you for asking. We took delivery of a new puppy just before Christmas, and so this was a bit of carnage. is the main word to describe Christmas. So the puppy was all over the place, and it's reasonably house trained, so that was good. But I never realised that puppies could get into stuff, even though we thought we had made the house as puppy-proof as we had. Yeah, so
it's going to keep you very young, Jed.
Well, something has to. I've tried everything else, and that didn't work. It was great. It was great fun. Raring to go.
Okay, we'll knuckle down now then.
Indeed.
So, when you see forward into 2022, we've obviously come out of one of the most difficult, incredibly strange years of business history. As you go into 2022, what do you think are the 3 big things that will be top of the worry list for your clients?
Yeah. Okay. In no particular order. I think one of the conversations that I've been having with my clients, typically the family businesses, has been around, what do the founders, what do typically mum and dad want to do? What are their goals? When might they exit or take a back seat, a lesser role maybe, in their business? And if they were to do that, then is the next generation, to use a phrase, up to it? Do they want to step up and either come into the business or to develop their roles into more of a leadership role, board role, if you will. And does the next generation actually want to be part of growing this business, or do they want to sell or have nothing to do with it? All of these options have been brought into stark contrast as a result of the challenges that we've been suffering and going through since March 2020, and so those type of conversations, and particularly finally just the in terms of the next generation, the extent to which they have the confidence, they might want to step up, but this imposter syndrome, do I have the skills, do I have the wherewithal to be able to make that step up? So I think that's one of the first areas that I'm certainly discussing with not all, but some of the clients.
Yeah, and now you've mentioned it, it's something I'm seeing. I hadn't really put it together in the way that you had, and it's definitely true. I've got a number of clients who are thinking about succession, whether they're the owners or they're the leaders, and they're thinking, do you know what, life's too short, and the pandemic and all the other challenges of 2021 have made them revisit all of this and come to perhaps a different conclusion than they were, or a different place than they were before. So yeah, that I can see that. So what would number 2 be?
Okay. I want to talk a bit about technology. I am not particularly adept at technology, although I have, as most people, had to learn to adapt, and Teams and Zoom and various platforms that we've become familiar with particularly since March 2020. But the piece around technology is encouraging business leaders in sort of SME, small, medium-sized businesses, just to think, well, are we taking enough advantage from the technology that exists now? How can we use that technology to, yes, improve our productivity, to improve the profitability of the organization, but also increasingly to enhance the customer experience and to try to drive the loyalty, hopefully, of the client base, the customer base of organizations. I mean, if the pandemic taught us anything, it's that people have to do a lot of things electronically. And I think to assume that things will just go back to being, salespeople being able to go and physically meet their customers, some will, but some won't. So, it's not only using technology to improve the back office, but it's also how do we use technology to deliver a fantastic customer experience.
Yeah, I can see that, and certainly the value and importance of technology has got accelerated in the last 18 months in just about everybody's mind, I guess. So what would number 3 be?
This is an area where I bang on with my clients about, and I think they're getting the hint, and it's around positive mental attitude, but actually it's more than that. It's having a growth-oriented mindset. It's trying to say, okay, then there are challenges, but how can we see the opportunity in these challenges, and how do we create a culture within the organization that is growth centered rather than trying to hang on to what we've got. I mean, I would love to be able to say that this was a client of mine. It's not, just for the tape, but there's a lovely case study that's doing the rounds at the moment about Microsoft, and just asking the question, which of the 3 chief execs has delivered most shareholder value? And actually it's Nadella, the current CEO of Microsoft. And one of the first things that he did when he took over was to be very clear about the culture that he wanted in the organization. And he was very explicit about the growth mindset that he wanted to encourage, where people are curious, we're always trying to learn new stuff and find opportunity, as opposed to, we're Microsoft, we know everything. And so, encouraging that type of mindset, that attitude of curiosity and humility to find out stuff, is absolutely stuff that I really think that people, I'm going to be encouraging them to develop or to enhance. Don't know about you. But,
it's interesting, because one of the questions I was going to ask you a little later was, is 2022 the year for hairy, audacious goals, or is it another year of battening down the hatches and let's just get through to next year? What's your view? Though I think I already know the answer. What's your view of that?
I think you might. So yes is the answer. Big, hairy, audacious goals, big tick. I'm a strong believer in this, in as much as you have to have a guiding principle, a guiding direction for your organisation, what you're aspiring to. Because if you want a growth-oriented culture, I would argue that to understand what it is that we're aspiring to is really important. And I always think back to Alice in Wonderland, with apologies. And there was a conversation between Alice and the Cheshire Cat. And Alice is walking in the woods, and she comes to a fork in the path, and she doesn't know which way to go. So she looks up and sees the Cheshire Cat in the bough of a tree, and she says to the cat, and I paraphrase the conversation, which way should I go? So the cat says, well, where do you want to get to? And Alice says, well, I don't know. So the cat says, well, it doesn't matter which path you take then. If you have a clear sense of what it is that you are striving to achieve, the aspiration, the big, hairy, audacious goal, then that absolutely helps to say, we've got a business decision. Does it take us closer to or further away from achieving that goal? And the decision then becomes that much easier.
And would you have any other items that you or concerns that you think business owners, business leaders will be focusing on going into 2022?
I think if you have this substantive goal, this big, hairy, audacious goal, you quite quickly get to a point where, okay, we don't quite know how to get there. And what has got us here isn't necessarily able to get us to where we've just said we want to get to. So the topic of innovation crops up. And this is a bit of a challenge because in order to execute a business plan really successfully, we need discipline, we need focus. And the style of thinking in that execution piece is sometimes quite at odds with the risk-taking, open-minded, growth-oriented, innovative style that might really help us to get to where we want to get to. So the challenge is to try and balance and find a way in which we have both these styles within the same organization. Mm-hmm. Now, one of my clients took the very radical step of crudely mimicking and having two bits of the organization, explicit bits of the two halves, if you will, of the organization. One was tasked with execution and the other tasked with innovation. And the styles were different. They came together at the board, but the styles of the two halves were very different because what was being asked of them was very different, namely the execution and the what next. So yeah, that's an interesting way of, I think, looking at it.
For me, in addition to that, the fact that 2021 was full of so many imponderables, so many unnegotiables, things that were forced upon business owners, business leaders. I think it positions us well going into 2022 because there's every reason to think we're going to have a bit more of that and besides.
Yeah.
And so I think the those that have been agile will continue to be agile and they'll continue to thrive. Yeah. But that agile does, whether it's attached to a hairy audacious goal or whether it's actually just dodging a bullet, I think is a pretty much a key requisite. And you can look ahead and you can think of supply chain issues, you can think of inflation, you can think of anything to do with the pandemic and further lockdowns or furloughs or any of those nightmare scenarios. But the ability to respond to those quickly and effectively with, as you put it, innovation, I think is gonna always be very, very important throughout the whole of 2022. So this is the new year. We are all typically given to New Year's resolutions. We also know, don't we, I guess there's a statistic somewhere that says they rarely get past February. Why do you think that is? Why do you think we get to a new year and make all these promises to ourselves and to each other which really don't last?
Yeah. God, if I had the answer, could bottle it and get people to do it. Why do these things not last? I think that it centres around habit. Can we make the new activity or the new way of operating a habit, whether it's in the business lives or personal lives? and quite often people start with this new intent, as you say, but then we don't bring it into the way that we operate. We don't make it, whether it's a daily thing or a weekly thing, whatever it might be. We don't hardwire it into our operating system. And the ability to break things down and to ask ourselves this question: how can I make this resolution a habit? Now, one of the reasons that these resolutions tend to go is that the motivation for it, the understanding of the why it's important at the beginning of the year, is it still is it sufficiently important to continue to work on? And quite often, I think the answer is no. We come up with these great ideas, and we are not sufficiently motivated. We're not sufficiently energized by this resolution to keep it going.
So when you talk about it like that as a personal goal, on a personal endeavor, when you think about that as a leader, if you set targets, if you set aspirations which you aren't really committed to, and you don't really energize the people around you to those goals and to those objectives, it's pretty well committing yourself to failure, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the lesson here is around New Year's resolutions, and for people with their new budgets and their new forecast for 2022 is get serious, get focused, and be determined to achieve the really important things that matter.
Yeah, absolutely.
And only worry about those, and everything else will look after itself.
Yeah, and build a great team around you and get them to come up with a fantastic plan, as opposed to I've been up the mountain, I've got the knowledge and share it, and this is how it's going to be. We have to energize, we have to encourage people. Back to the big, hairy, audacious goals. That is only going to be achieved, or they are only going to be achieved, if people go, you know what, yeah, that's really interesting. I really want to be challenged about how we're going to do this.
Right.
If it's just the same old, then yeah, because most people, don't know about you, Graham, but I don't like to be bored. No. I like a challenge. Most people do. And being able to set a challenge where people go, you know what, that would be, if we could do that, wow, that'd be fantastic. And a number of times in my coaching career, I've heard the expression, "Oh, but this goal, it's not really realistic." So what you're saying is you really want to forecast. Well, forecasts are just from where we've got to, typically a straight line, maybe a bit of a hockey stick, but actually it's not game changing, and it's not really going to drive the competitiveness and the sustainability of the business.
Well, coaching is about change. As coaches, our job is to help people be the person, do the things they want to do. And if they're not prepared to do that, they don't want them enough. And we can't, as coaches, make that stuff happen either.
Very true.
That gap. So to bring this session to a close, how are you feeling about 2022?
Well, I have to say energized, clearly. Yeah, well, it sort of has to be better than the last couple of years, doesn't it? I think it's going to be offer opportunities for those who can recognise them. And one thing that really sticks in my mind, some people say, well, I don't tend to see opportunities. Where can I find them? And I always remember a piece that I first learned about from Mike Ferguson, and he talks about driving, learning to drive and driving a new car, and he says, well, there you are in your new car, and you are really thinking to yourself, gosh, I didn't realise that how popular this type of car that I'm now driving is, because I'm seeing them all over the place. And I won't go into the neuroscience about it, but this is a thing. So, okay then, driving a new car, business opportunities, how does this work? As soon as you recognize the type of opportunities that you would really want to get and start to develop, strangely enough, you will start to see them.
That's absolutely true.
I remember working with a business, and there was a Christmas party going on. The chief executive gets up and he says, "You know what? The average order size has been 5 figures. Next couple of years, we're going to be looking for opportunities that are at least 7-figure." And strangely enough, we started to find these opportunities. Yeah. We didn't win many of them, but we won enough of them. And it was just changing, we're becoming sensitized to these opportunities. And you will find them. If you identify specifically the type of business that will really grow and help you to achieve your big, hairy, audacious goals, you will find them.
Very good. Jed, thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.
Thanks for your time. Great to see you again.
And you, Graham.
And everybody, that's the end of this edition of the Coaching Conversation. Happy New Year. Wish you all the very, very best for 2022 and see you next time. So, there you have it. The latest edition of the Coaching Conversation. Hope you found it interesting. Hope you found it useful. You can find out more about our coaching programs at theexecutivemindset.co.uk. If you want to reach out, you can send me an email at theexecutivemindset@sagegreen.com. You can book a free 30-minute session at theexecutivemindset.co.uk, which will give you a really good feel for how coaching could help you. And if you've really enjoyed the session, do please rate us, do please give us a review. And nothing more for me to say other than see you next time.